Hello, Maverick fans. Welcome to the one, the only Mavpuckcast with Jason.
And John.
Hopefully you like that little change to our intro. I feel the need to mix things up a little bit. John's grabbing his drink for our What Is Our Drink segment.
Yeah, because apparently I was not ready to go live here on this podcast. So,
And I'm not cutting that out. Just it's more fun this way.
It
So I guess I should
It didn't make a
start.
lot of interesting noise, did it? As I got up and did that. Yeah. Okay.
So while you get prepared, I'm going to start this week.
Okay.
Since I failed miserably last week and just had my protein shake after our sniper games
Yeah,
in the tournament.
I want to thank you for having the chocolate milk last week. You
Yeah,
kind of
well-
pulled a John there as far as your beverage went.
We'll talk about the happenings and stuff in Duluth, and I guess I take credit for that. So this week I decided to double down. I've got straight Jim Beam and honey.
Okay.
So I'm not mixing it with anything else. I'm not going cheap beer or anything. We're going full on. Let's just drink some alcohol and get ourselves out of
Look,
this.
it's been an up and down season, but the team seems to play better when you drink an adult beverage. So
I'm slightly inebriated.
nix that chocolate milk, for the rest of the season, as far as I'm concerned.
I don't know. I'd have to ask my guys about can I put whiskey in my protein shake?
It would definitely add some carbs to your protein shake, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know how that stuff works.
We don't talk nutrition
many
on this
Jim Beams and
podcast.
honey.
Absolutely not. Well,
All right, so what do you got?
I am drinking Hollywood's original Shirley Temple soda pop. This would be Cherry 7-Up for those who don't know what a Shirley Temple is.
It's pink.
Yeah, Roy Roger. Yeah, it's very pink and girly. So that was the other drink. Bridget got me that Bulldog root beer last week at Mangelson's, and then she got me a bottle of this too. And I was gonna go to Broncos here in Omaha, and I was gonna get a Broncos beverage and bring it over, but I didn't really want to go out of the way on the drive over here, so I didn't do that. So
The weather's not that bad.
no.
It will be later this week, but
Yeah, no, the weather's fine today. I mean, it just
All right.
I didn't want to delay. I didn't want to delay getting out here to record this.
this isn't a weather podcast, so we should probably move on. We're stalling
Absolutely,
on
yeah, we're stalling.
What happened in Duluth?
Yeah,
It was cold up there.
It was, yeah, sub-zero temperatures.
I said it wasn't a weather podcast. But,
Here we're talking about weather again. It was a tough series for the team.
for our team.
Yeah, not for their team. I'll tell you what, and it's amazing the number of we were just looking at that, the number of underclassmen on that roster. Freshmen and sophomores that are good contributors on that team. They're going to be a good team for a while.
That or this year's a fluke.
I mean, you could be right.
You never know. That's kind of one of the things with college hockey is it's not uncommon for teams to go from bad season to great season or the other way around.
Sometimes just a handful of players can be the difference between that. It's crazy what kind of a thin thread there is that kind of holds some of these operations together. But they've got good goaltending, a good defensive core, and some good forwards.
So for those who weren't able to watch the games on NCHC TV, I don't think any of them were on locally, right? That I knew of.
There was it was on Fox Sports Midwest, and so some people maybe with satellite or so I don't know. See, I cut the cord years ago, so I stream this stuff. So
yeah, so we'll just say if they didn't watch on NCHC TV, UNO had a really bad Friday, lost 7-2.
It was a tough Friday.
That's probably closer than the game really was.
Right.
And then a much better effort on Saturday, but we still lost 3-1.
Right.
At no point in the game were we winning either game.
No. It was.
So what are your thoughts?
I don't know. It kind of reminded me a little bit, just the vibe I had watching it. It reminded me of a little bit when Bridget and I were up at St. Cloud for that series back in December. You could tell that we were playing a really good team. You could tell that, we kind of got off slow out of the gate on Friday night in particular. Right. And I think, overall, this was a series that you and I, looking at this one on paper going into it, we were hoping that we could split, but I don't know that we were terribly confident about that.
I know I wasn't. I predicted that we'd get swept.
Did you predict that? I thought you predicted that we'd split.
No, you predicted that we'd split.
All right. Okay.
Remember?
I don't remember.
In this gag, you were the optimist. You're the good cop. I'm the bad cop.
The optimist.
Remember?
I'm well aware. I picked a sweep of North Dakota too. I'm trying to be optimistic. But when we went into January, we really looked at that North Dakota series as being the series where we could get some wins and get some conference points. We weren't terribly confident about the Denver series to start off the new year, or this series playing the defending national champions in Duluth. So, I don't know. I think the toughest part of that weekend was the number of shots that we gave up both nights. 56 on Friday, 52 on Saturday. And that was just looking here, that was a season high number of shots for Duluth this season.
I heard the announcers say at one point that the game plan or the request from the coach was 60, and I thought, well, that's lowballing it a little bit.
It is lowballing a little
bit. At that point in time, I think we'd given up 28 or something in the period.
Right.
And I think that's a big problem, because this isn't the first game that's happened. I mean, UNO's given up, over 40 shots in a game.
Right.
Multiple times.
Yeah, the previous one, we did give up over 50 shots that game back in October. I think the second game against Arizona State out there.
Yeah.
We gave up 50-some shots. So that was our previous high until this weekend.
We just can't. We got to find a way. Coaches got to find a way to keep that workload down around
that's
mid-30s or something.
Exactly. We had heard that was going to be the strategy in the second half of the season, was to kind of slow it down, kind of shorten the game, and minimize the number of looks that the other teams got on Wenninger.
Yeah, they didn't do that.
No, they didn't do that.
I don't know why that plan changed.
I don't know why that plan changed either. Maybe they listened to us a couple weeks ago where we said, just run up and down the ice with them. If we get beat 7-2, it doesn't matter. So
but we weren't.
He hasn't given us the CWS line yet, but he gave us what we wanted. But at this point,
why not? Just come on, man. I mean, what do you got to lose?
Yeah. I mean, if it works, we'll probably take credit.
Because I'm not kidding if you didn't watch the game. I think it's amazing that they actually kept that game 7-2 on Friday. I agree. We were outclassed every second of the game.
I agree. I completely agree.
And so, I don't know. I mean, we've got to find a way that we can prevent shots, but we still need some scoring opportunities. Because the other side of that is, I think we got outshot 20. It was 24-4 or something at one point. And I'm like, the odds that we're going to score on 4 shots are pretty low.
Oh, yeah. No, it was crazy. I'm just looking at that right now. It was crazy, the number of shots that we allowed. And then Friday night.
It's not the running gun systems. I've seen running gun systems where there's 100 shots, combined per team or something, and it's not the case. They get all the shots.
Friday night, we only got 17 shots on goal the entire game Friday night. It was 34 Saturday night, so that was
a little better.
More normal. Yeah.
I mean, you really should be looking at mid-20s to low 30s. Sure. It should be your goal for offensive production. That should net you 2 to 3 goals. Right. And Evan played really, really well. And I think if he keeps playing at the level that he has played, realistically, letting in 1 or 2 is acceptable.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I know, right? It was.
We've talked about secondary scoring and stuff before, and it was totally evident in there. I mean, Polkinen's line, I thought, played pretty well.
Yep.
And certainly had chances.
Yeah.
But there was no finishing. I mean, they had great opportunities that they sent wide, or granted, he made some good saves for Duluth, but
It's hard. Yeah, that was just one of those series, and again, it reminded me of the one at St. Cloud. It was
Right.
just
Right.
it just had that. I just didn't feel, first few minutes into the game on Friday, I just didn't feel like we were going to win a game this weekend.
Yeah.
And that's nothing against the players and the guy. I mean, they're working hard. They had a good couple of productive series leading into this one. It wasn't meant to be this weekend.
They've bounced back in these kinds of things
Yep.
before, and I think they can do it again. I just, I don't know. They seem to pack it in a little bit on Friday, kind of after,
Right.
2/3 or so of,
Sure.
of the second period. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
they're gonna
know.
find something.
Well, and the players in the press conference last Tuesday kind of alluded to that earlier in the season, back in October and November, that there were certain games where they just, they get down by a couple goals and they felt like, sort of just mentally felt like packing it in and,
Right.
moving on to the next game. And this has been a tough season for them. And so it's one of those seasons where we're going to have to kind of enjoy what we get, and it may not be a, national championship, obviously, but we've got to enjoy the victories as they come.
We have a chance. You keep
Yeah.
saying, the winner of the NCHC tournament gets in, no
I
matter
mean,
what their
if
record is.
I'll tell you what, if we win the next 10 regular season games, we'll be in really good shape. Heading into the conference tournament. Yeah.
I think that's beyond optimism, but yeah,
I think that and as that's the other thing too, is as we kind of start to drill down the number of games here, it's, and we're heading into February now, the narrative kind of starts to change, because the fewer games we have, the fewer opportunities there are to kind of turn things around and get a respectable win total, to end the season.
right. And you can't get an at-large bid if you're not 500. So
Yeah, and I look at it this way. I mean, unless we're 500, we're not going to win the kind of comparisons that we need to win. Anyway,
yeah.
Exactly. You're just not going to. So,
it's not going to be there.
no.
So I know a lot of fans on Twitter and Facebook that we've been seeing and stuff have kind of alluded to packing it in, not just for this season, but it seems like there's some debate as to whether or not it's 7 or 10 years from now before we see a competitive
It's that
team.
wonderful time every year when the silly season starts to happen among fans. I mean, here's the thing. And one of the things that makes sports so compelling is that the narrative you want is rarely the narrative you get. If you could predict what was going to happen, and you knew exactly what was going to happen with, beyond a shadow of a doubt, sports wouldn't be interesting, because nobody would tune in to watch, because they know what was going to happen. So
Right.
the unpredictability is what makes it interesting. And obviously, I don't think anybody, I mean, in hindsight, we could look back and point to indicators that might have suggested this would happen this season. But I think we thought that the team would probably win the, typical 16, 17 games that they had been winning the last, basically decade.
Right.
And so it didn't happen. So that's, in many respects, just looking at it month by month, record wise, it's similar to the 8-win season that they had back in 2003, 2004, which was a season where there was a lot of hand wringing among fans, and there was a lot of consternation, and there were a lot of, doom and gloom predictions. And we've heard that today. It's been interesting, because you look at the last few weeks of play. We play well at Denver. We play well against North Dakota at Baxter Arena.
Right.
And everybody's like, the team's playing well. They're getting things going. The coach has got them going. They're buying in. This team is, on the mend. They're on the rebound.
Right.
And then we have one bad series against the defending national champions in Duluth. And suddenly this is all Dean Blaze's fault. And it's going to take, 7 to 10 years to turn this thing around.
Right. I think it shows where the NCHC is at this moment in time. I think that the NCHC is clearly St. Cloud and Duluth.
Right.
And then you've got 3 teams in Denver, North Dakota, and Western Michigan that are kind of a second tier program. And then you round out the bottom.
Correct.
And so we're playing like one of the teams that are rounding out the bottom.
Yeah.
Now, I think that's fine to look at for the season, but then to like project that 7 years from now or 6 years from now or something, where we're still going to be in this position, I think that's kind of rough. And I think that Gavden's doing a job about, preaching system and responsibility, and he's looking long term.
Right.
But next season's next season, and
Right.
so we have a bad season this year. Pack it in. We get some young new blood come into Baxter Arena, and we'll see what happens.
Right.
Just because we have one bad year doesn't mean the program's doomed for a decade.
No, and sometimes I think people make that prediction because it's almost a safe prediction to come out and say, we're not going to be good for another 4 or 5 years. And then if they are good, then it's like, well, see, the coaches and administration, they're all geniuses, and the players, overperformed, and they did a yeoman's job of,
Right.
Getting things done. And I would rather be a little less safe. I would think that there are opportunities for them to improve next season. I mean, we've won one game on the road this season. I think even with a team full of, underclassmen, I think that they can compete next year. We won't know, obviously. I mean, it's the unpredictable nature, like I was talking about.
Right.
We don't know what will happen until we see those guys and see what kind of line combinations and how they perform early on in the season. But I think, I don't know. I think there's probably a palpable fear that we're going to become Colorado College, which you look at, that's a program that used to be a perennial NCAA contender.
Mm-hmm.
They've won national championships.
Yes, they have.
And,
unfortunately,
Colorado College and Miami have both struggled since the NCHC began play in 2013. And those were good programs before the NCHC. So I think that there's a fear. And it's one of those strange situations where I don't know necessarily how you turn it around in the near term, but I think, and I know people are.
I don't know that you want to, though. I don't know that you want to turn around. Like, I think from a coaching standpoint, where Gavden sits, I don't know that your expectation or your desire is for it to be dramatically different next year, because, and I know the fans probably won't like hearing this, but I would be concerned about that fluke year where kids come in and it's amazing, and then you lose guys that probably aren't ready to go to the next level, and then you end up hurting your program long term even more. Like, I'd rather see them take incremental steps towards a perennial program, which is what a lot of the the Denvers and Bostons and Boston College and these perennial teams have done, is that they've built a culture and they've built a fan base, they've built all the necessities that go around, having a successful, program year in and year out. They have the recruiting base, they have the recruiting talent. They do things the right way. The way Gavden has talked about, do things the right way, even when the results aren't what you want. You're still doing things the right way.
Right.
So we've talked about this before in some of the other podcasts. Is I would expect to see this team kind of take a step to maybe closer to a 500 team next year.
Right.
Then be over 500 the following year, and then be in a situation where, you're winning conference championships and year in, year out, you're making a run for these types of things. You're not going to get it every year. But if next year kids come in and we're suddenly, a 22 win season or something, like, my concern would be that the focus is on how much talent we had come in, and some of those kids then leave too early when they're like sophomores.
Here's the thing.
Juniors.
This could happen because back in the 03-04 season, where we won 8 games, we brought in a who's who of the top scorers in the United States Hockey League.
Yeah.
Right? And so they came in, and if I recall correctly, and I'm just doing this off the top of my head, people, but this is the kind of useless trivia that I know about this team. I believe we turned it around and we went from winning 8 games to winning 19 games the following season. We got to the CCHA Super 6 in Detroit, which was the last time any of us got to go to a neutral site, conference, anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then the following year, they made the NCAA tournament. Well, Bill Thomas was a player who came in during that 04-05 class from Tri-City. And he and Scott Parse did really well together on that team.
Right.
And then Bill Thomas, who had been an undrafted free agent, got interest from the Coyotes organization.
Right.
And he ended up leaving mere hours after we lost to Boston University in the regional out in Worcester, Massachusetts. And he was a player who left after his sophomore season. He probably should have stayed another season. But obviously, when the great one, Wayne Gretzky, contacts you and asks you to come play professional hockey, you're probably not going to say no to that.
Right.
But that was one of those situations where if he had stayed another season, they might have made another NCAA tournament run because the team was different without him.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, a lot of times those things don't end up working out. You know,
Right.
he left early, and I think that another year in college hockey probably would have been better for him.
Right.
Developed his skill a little bit more. But it's hard to turn down that money. And
Yeah.
a lot of these kids have dreams of playing in the NHL. And so when an NHL team comes and says, we'll take you and we'll give you a spot, most of them won't bat an eye about staying. And so, that's hard. And that would be my concern is
Yep.
that, you get these kids come in and all of a sudden it's like, oh, this kid's the reason why they went from 8 to 20 or something
Sure.
like that.
And so the NHL scouts come in and decide to poach him,
Yeah.
you know?
Because the kid developed faster than we expected,
Sure.
or this is where we wanted him to be, and now he's there. And then it's like, see, and that's what gets hard then, because you steal him, and now a guy that you expected to have. Because most of the time,
Right.
when you're into recruiting stuff for college hockey and stuff, you're looking at getting 3 years out of a player. It's always a bonus.
Right.
We get a senior season.
Yep.
But the good talents, the kids that get drafted and stuff, you typically expect to get 3 years out of them.
You're
So when
talking
they
like
leave,
a Jake Gensel type of a
Right.
situation.
which
Yeah.
Gensel was where, I mean, after his junior year, it's like, yeah, we all wanted him to stay, but that's probably where Blaise had thought we'd get out of him.
Yeah, exactly. I would have preferred that he stayed another year, but
Right.
that's just me. But this is the thing.
But you see it's working out. Like,
Right.
had he left after his sophomore season, who's to say that he'd be in the same position without that extra year of
You're
development?
absolutely right. And obviously, I will say that if the freshman class comes in next year and we rattle off 22 wins, that would be, I think at this point, I would gladly take that problem now, but I understand
Right.
exactly what you're
For
saying.
next year. But then
Right.
what happens the year after that? Because then all these kids, you lose, 2 or 3 of them you weren't planning on losing. Now you don't have recruiting to bring in because you haven't recruited. Your expectation is that they get to their junior year. They leave early, a year or two. You don't have the system. You don't have that recruiting lineup in place to
You don't have
bring
the
in.
experience of having the successful players on your roster that you've been developing the first 2 years to
Right.
do it your way. And so suddenly you have to bring in a bunch of, fresh recruits.
Right, or get
That's-
someone to flip.
You're absolutely right. I think the thing that's hard for me about this entire discussion that's been, percolating over on Twitter is the fact that I think it's somewhat pointless to continue re-prosecuting the Dean Blaise years. I think that, and again, I've heard a lot of stories of what went on his final 2 seasons. We all know that going into the 2016-17 season, which would ultimately be his last, that it sounded like he knew he was on the way out,
Right.
before the season started. And I'll just tell you right now, that is not a healthy situation to have, is to have a head coach who's, kind of in a bad frame of mind, and who knows whether he's getting along with the administration or not at that point, because you have to keep recruiting players every year. Now, I don't necessarily think that that's why we're having the woes that we are having now. Obviously, we've lost recruits. More recently, last season, we lost recruits when Peter Menino left the team.
Right.
But it's hard to know. I mean, had we recruited, 15 and 16-year-olds back then, would they have panned out, a couple, 3 years later and been great? It's hard to say. As well as I do that a lot of times teams will get commits from some of those young players, and they just get the commits to try to get the commits, not necessarily intending to bring them in later on. knowing that they might not pan out, but they want to
Yeah.
keep their competition from
going after 'em.
Right.
Right. And so that's why I don't put a whole lot of stake in verbal commits for me.
Right.
It's
not until
cool
they
to
sign
see
that
that they're
national-
working,
yeah.
but I don't hold a whole lot of stake that they're actually going to show up. I kind of wait for the NLI period and stuff like that. That's when you start to get a better feel for what it is. And there's so much that goes into, even after you get a verbal commit from a kid, there's so much that goes into nurturing that relationship and
Right.
making sure that they're still committed to coming to the university and making
Right.
sure that they don't get spooked by things. And that's a hard thing to do. And I think that the conversion from verbal commit to national letter is where you see, is that coaching staff willing to put in that work? Do they have someone
Right.
who's good at that? Because I think that getting a kid to say, yes, I'm going to come to Nebraska Omaha is one kind of skill set and talent. And getting a kid to say, I said I'm coming here, I'm putting a pen to paper with my name on it, is a different skill set.
Well, we've seen this with dozens of recruits over the years. I mean, we've had guys who've decided to go we just recently had a recruit decide to go the major junior route. I mean, and this is a, Gabinet recruit under the current regime. I mean, this just happens. I mean, if you go to
Right.
Chris Heisenberg's, recruiting spreadsheets that are really fascinating to look at online, you look at these teams and you look at the number of guys who have a line through their name. Guys decommit all the time. Or,
Right.
you look at Tyler Weiss. We were talking about this before the show. Tyler was a guy who was, committed to going to Boston University. And ultimately he ended up coming here. And I'm assuming that
From everything
David
we hear, it's a
Quinn.
Quinn guy. He was a Quinn kid.
which David Quinn was for those who don't know, was a former assistant in the early years at UNO, and he's a terrific individual. I got to interact with him a number of times, and I can understand wanting to play for Quinn. But that's one of those things where we benefited, where a player who was a good prospect, didn't go to a top team like BU and ended up coming to UNO. So this happens all the time. So I don't put a whole lot of stock in that. I guess what I would say is this is one of those, kind of challenging moments where we have to get things, probably going within the next couple seasons, I would say.
You have to start. I think you just need to start seeing progression.
Right.
We have a
More consistent play.
8 to 10 win season this season.
Right.
Let's have a 14 to 16 win season next
Yep.
season, and
Yeah.
then we can start getting to the point where we're talking about, all right. now, Weiss is a junior.
Yeah.
Possibly the last year we have him.
Right.
You've got
Ward will be a
Conley.
junior.
Ward will be a junior. So, and then you've got these freshmen that
Yep.
we expect for next season that will
Yeah.
be in their sophomore years, and that's when I really expect them to, if the system's working, if the things are going the way that
Right.
it sounds like Gabinet wants them to go, that's
Right.
I think going to be the sign that that's what we're getting, right?
Right. And I know people are concerned about the incoming recruiting class because it's not a who's who of NHL draft picks at this point. But again, we don't know what'll happen this summer.
And we got to see, because
Yeah.
yeah,
We've got a mix. Sometimes, honestly, there's
everything I've seen says that Seville will go probably late second, early third.
right.
With the season that he's having, I think that's personally, I just think that's kind of his top end, especially for being a goaltender. It's really hard for teams to draft goaltenders. It's really hard to predict how a kid's going to progress. But I could see him I have him mid third, late third, probably. If he slides, maybe fourth round, but he's probably going to be an NHL pick. I think Bremer might be a late pick.
Bremer, here's the thing about him. He was traded a couple
Yeah, he's
weeks
now
ago.
in Lincoln. Yeah.
Yeah, and he had a hat trick last night. And it was the first hat trick for the Stars since 2017. I think it might have been December 2017, so it's not like it was 2 years ago. But
Right.
that's pretty impressive. He was a player that you and I really liked.
Yeah.
And I think some of these guys, are older players who'd been recruited by top programs who the programs, for whatever reason, decided not to bring them in. So they're a little bit older, but those guys could turn out to be, good players for UNO that are diamonds in the rough.
Right.
That we might not see it now, but they're a little bit older. They've got the experience. They've got a chip on their shoulder because they were passed over and things haven't quite gone the way they want. So there's kind of a maturity level there. There's maybe a little bit of leadership there. So I think it'll be interesting to see when you're looking at, fully 1/3 to 1/2 of the team is going to be new next season. It's going to look very different than it does now.
Right. And you never know how. I've talked about chemistry at least a lot on the podcast and stuff, and it's something I've always looked for in coaching kids when I was doing that was who gels well,
right?
Who's good on the road together, and who plays well, because sometimes it's like I know some coaches are just like, all right, the 3 guys that are on the line together, room together, and the 2 guys that are paired on D together, room together, and that's kind of how everything worked. And there were a number of times where we went on traveling trips and stuff, and I'd have a first line center with a third line wing and a first pairing D, just because the guys seemed to be friends and get along together, and I really didn't care that guys that played together stay together, kind of thing. Right. Because I really wanted them to build that bond and have that camaraderie. And so you don't know with these kids coming in where they're going to lie on the chemistry, who's going to connect together on the ice, who's going to be able to support each other off the ice. Sure. So I think just a lot of unknowns.
I think potentially it might be. Look, I think you've got a mixture of guys from the Blaze era, guys from the Gabinet era. I know that a number of the guys from the Blaze era were excited and happy when Gabinet became head coach, but it's still you're dealing with baggage there from the previous regime, and so I think having a fresh slate of players might actually serve them well.
And it's different. It's different when you come into a system where you know you're going to have to learn something new, and you're learning something new, versus these guys that have played together. We've done it this way for, especially the seniors. Like, think about it. We did it this way for 2 years. Then we had to learn a new way to do it, and now we're trying to execute on the new way we learned.
I know.
It's hard.
It's definitely hard, and we've heard that in the weekly press conferences time and time again. I think the guys are buying in, and they're buying into the systems and buying in with what we're wanting to do here. When you've got freshmen coming in, they're not going to know any different. That's just what we do here.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you haven't been around hockey, it's hard to understand. I think if you haven't played hockey, it's nearly impossible to really understand at that level what it takes to change a system, to change a way you play. Especially some of these kids that they're used to being this kind of player,
right?
Being relied on to do this. They were taught that you need to do this, and then all of a sudden you're playing in a different system, and now you're having to be something else,
right?
Sometimes that works out for you. Sometimes you weren't used right the first way. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're put in a position where you're having to do things you're not comfortable with.
Well, and I think one of the other things that kind of afflicts fans from time to time is the fact that, look, by all accounts, I think we had a lot of success during the Dean Blaze years, during the 8 seasons he was here. But there were fans who were getting kind of worn out on, only winning 17, 18 games a season. Now, at this point in the season, 17, 18 wins looks pretty good. But you remember there were some people that thought that, I kind of got the sense that there were people who thought, well, we're going to win, 16 to 18 games a season. We need somebody who can kind of, turn the dial a little bit and get that up to 20, 21 wins a season. And I don't think they necessarily realize how hard it is, when you're talking about a 34 game season, how hard it is to
win 2 out of 3.
Over 500.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of, unfortunately, in my experience, a lot of people who are casual fans don't understand that 15 wins in a season is actually really good.
Yeah, even though you might be sub 5, depending on ties and everything else, that would leave you sub 500. You've got a pretty solid team, and there have been a lot of good teams over the years that finish slightly below 500, but they've been competitive all season long.
Yeah,
it's just it's a more difficult thing. I remember there were people who had made the comment to me over the years. They're like, UNO will never get to a Frozen Four, just because you look at the teams back over the last 10, 12 years that have gotten there and have won a national championship, and
This
For
is
years it was
before we actually made one, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
For years you're talking about, exactly. Yeah. Once we
Right.
made one, because one of our friends, one of the guys who's on the Mavpuck message board, had said he would streak around the CenturyLink Center. So we're still trying to hold him to that. That has not happened yet, by the way.
Well, now it's not the CenturyLink Center, so does that get him out of it then?
I'd be fine if he wanted to.
It's a health center, so if he ends up with like frostbite or something,
Yeah,
they'll be right
that'd
there.
be fine. I'm sure there's a medic inside now that they're called the CHI Health Center. Anyway, I mean, the reality is he was probably right. I mean, I know that there were a lot of people after the season in 2014-15 who were like, well, we're going to make it back to the, Frozen Four next year in Tampa.
Right.
And that's not the way it works. There are certain programs over the years, like, Boston College was a program that seemed to be a perennial team. There were a number of years where, Maine was a fixture there and Michigan was a fixture there. But in recent years, it could be anybody. And even more recent years, it's been a who's who of NCHC teams that have been there.
Right.
And so, it's a small group and a small fraternity that gets to the Frozen Four.
And it's important. There's been a couple teams over the course of the years where their 20th win or 21st win or something, like they just break 20 wins, is the national championship.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's like you get into the tournament and you're 17, 18 wins.
Yep.
It's not uncommon for you to play well, go on a tear, and get your 20 wins.
Sure.
In the title games.
Oh, absolutely. There was in one particular, I think it was the year that Bridget and I went down to the Frozen Four in St. Louis, and Michigan State was a team that nobody was expecting to do anything. And that team just went on a tear in the NCAA tournament and ends up winning the national championship down there. And that was not a team that, a month before people have been talking about it at all. You look at Duluth last year, who wins the national championship, and they get in there by what, like 0.00000 something of a, I mean, it's that crazy how thin the margin is. So I would always just encourage fans that if we have a season where we, like last season where we got, I think 17 wins on the season, it wasn't a season that resulted in an NCAA tournament at-large bid, but it was a good season, and it was a good competitive season. And it doesn't matter to me whether we win the games in October or we win them in March. I know that there have been some fans who are like, well, I don't necessarily want to be, care if we're good early in the season. I want to be, solid in March. And it's like, well, a win is a win is a win in college hockey, and I'll take it whenever it happens.
So I think it's important to move us along a little bit on this, is just with the season looking the way it is, and we're expecting probably not a whole lot more output from this team this season. What is this university going to do to keep season ticket holders specifically engaged? And for those that don't know, the university is doing a pitch right now for $10 seats. I don't know if it's for any game or for select games. I'd have to look that up again, but you can get a ticket for $10, which is cheaper per game than what we spend on our season tickets. So at this point in time, as a season ticket holder, you're looking at this going, I'm spending more for what?
Right. This was the problem that they had downtown. As we're well aware, the overabundance of seats for UNO hockey proved to be a problem. And in order to get butts in seats, they would have ticket discounts, or there was I think First National had a program where if you showed your card at the box office, you could get 2-for-1 seats. They had all kinds of interesting promotions down there over the years. And the biggest complaint was, you're devaluing my seats. Why should I buy season tickets when I can basically buy single tickets to game tickets to any game I want? And we didn't think that we were going to see that at Baxter Arena when the place opened in 2015. We thought this place is going to be smaller and demand will be higher, atmosphere will be great, and people will...
And seats would be filled, which they haven't been.
And seats will be filled. No, and there have been people who've given up their seats. And it'd be kind of interesting. Obviously, we don't, know the composition or the, intensity of the fans who've bought seats over the years. And I know your feeling on that is, if the next few years are lean, are we going to start to hemorrhage more season ticket holders?
And I think well, first off, your season ticket holders are typically your committed fans. They're the people that are going to be there through the down years.
And it's really beneficial if you can, obviously people buy their tickets, most of them on the payment plans, but it's good to be able to get that recurring income from your most loyal customers.
Right.
Because the toughest thing is, number one, if you have a lapsed customer, it's very, very difficult to get them back. And it's also very difficult to recruit new customers to buy season tickets. And this is something that everybody faces and everybody deals with in college hockey. And you'll see a lot of good teams that have empty seats. And so just because UNO, let's say they, like we had been talking about earlier, let's say they have just this miraculous season with a bunch of underclassmen where they win 22 games next year, that's not necessarily going to translate into, a rush to buy season tickets for the following season by new people.
Yeah, in fact, if you look at it, you're going to be more likely to reap the rewards of that the following season, because people will think, most people are casual fans who come to a game here or there or something, or were season ticket holders that no longer are going to look at that saying, oh, they're going to be good the next season.
Right.
So then they get season tickets the following year, and now you're in a situation where maybe they're not as good because it was a fluke season and they only win, 11 games or something, and they're thinking, oh, this is a stupid decision. Well, now it's going to be even harder to get that person back.
Here's things for people like us who are diehard fans, and I have this, insane, completely unplanned 400 and some whatever. So now, I got to keep the attendance streak going. So that definitely keeps you motivated on cold, icy nights. It's one of those things, and we've talked about this. Bridget and I do marketing communications in our business. So one of the things that you have to do in order to get members for a number of the nonprofits that we work with and have worked with over the years is you've got to incentivize them to join. It can't just be, join our cause for the good of the cause because we need you to join the cause. You have to incentivize them to do what you want them to do, which a lot of times means you have to come up with special perks and special bonuses that will make signing up for a membership more appealing. It's not a one-to-one correlation, but it's the same thing with season ticket holders, because essentially those people, they are, the membership of UNO hockey. They are your best customers. So what are you going to do to retain? Because sometimes it seems like, we just sort of take the season ticket holders for granted. Oh, they're the diehard people, hopefully we'll get 90% renewals from them. And
I think people have made the exact same argument from cable providers, and it's kind of the reason why you and I are streamers is, for the longest time, it was like, here I am, I get a good deal, I'm there for a year, and then they jack up the price, and I have to, argue and negotiate, mostly at times, because I had no other options. Well, now you got streaming, which in a lot of cases is a cheaper option, and I don't have to deal with it, and it's always the same price.
And a lot of times the picture quality, quite honestly, is better.
Right.
You don't have to deal with a giant clunky box that's an energy hog.
Yeah. And I can take it wherever I go.
Sure.
And I can watch, one thing on one device and another thing. So there's so many advantages to it.
I can cancel anytime, and it's very easy.
And I think that gets to this point of if the team's not performing well, and there's no value to being a season ticket holder, what else is going to draw my attention and take me away? Because then all of a sudden, what do you get? You get the Lancers that come in and say, you can get season tickets at Lancers for, X amount and join this club and be a member of this for only this. And, they start pitching the perks and stuff of being a Lancers thing. And, maybe you lose people to Lancers hockey. Maybe you lose people to TV in general.
Well, it's just when you look at it, you're not just competing, as we were talking about, you're not just competing against other hockey entities here in the area. You're competing against other entertainment entities. You're competing against Netflix. You're competing against, going to the theater and watching a movie.
Right.
You're competing
If
against.
I didn't have my season tickets and felt bad about missing something I was paying for, I would be going and doing this. Well, if you do things to support the fan base,
Sure.
they don't think that.
I'll give you an example, and we've talked about this on this show before. Skate with the Mavs. This was something that they've done every season since they've been at Baxter Arena, and they
Right.
did it for a number of seasons at the CenturyLink Center downtown. They're not doing this year. From
All
what
signs
we've been
point
able
to
to
no.
tell.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll come up with something this week for a later week, but we're getting kind of the time is the time
Right.
is dwindling to be able to do that, and these are the kind of activities that other programs do to engage their fans. And I understand that it's work, it's extra work on the weekend for the athletic departments, the coaches, the team, etc. And it's probably, they probably have a million other things they want to do and they need to do, but you have to put your face in front of the people that are paying the bills and keeping the lights on at Baxter Arena. You have to do it. And it's not just about schmoozing the donors. It's about schmoozing the people who are your rank and file fans, who are your evangelists, who go out there and tell everybody else in the community what a great sport UNO hockey. I mean, I can, countless dozens of fans that Bridget and I have converted. I'll tell you, my friend Scott, who lives in our neighborhood, he's a plumber who does a lot of work on my house, and he replumbed the neighborhood pool that Bridget and I run a few years ago. Bridget and I thanked him for his help with UNO hockey tickets over the years. And, 2 seasons ago, he decided to buy his own season tickets. This was a guy who was not a UNO hockey fan. He's not an alumni of the university. But now he's got season tickets. He comes to every game. He enjoys it. He has a good time. And so these are the people that you need to keep engaged, because you're not going to get new season ticket holders, based on a billboard or on a Facebook ad or that sort of thing.
The university, I mean, what did they spend to get him to buy season tickets? Virtually, honestly, nothing.
Yeah.
And I think they stand so much more to lose.
Right.
Because if attendance drops, which it will if you don't support the fan base,
right,
concessions also drop, which is really where you make money, because you don't typically make money on your seat by seat. It's the income that you need to keep things running, but you're never gonna profit selling out arena.
It's definitely a bonus for them when they, you get a person coming to a game to buy a couple beers, buy a tub of popcorn,
something.
Yeah, you look at some of those, beer and popcorn are pretty high margin items. So that's one of the things that's interesting. But that's what you want people to do. And a lot of times it's things that don't cost a lot of money that you can do to help, enhance buying season tickets for fans. And like I mentioned, the skate with the Mavs is one thing. Not everybody's going to want to skate with the Mavs, but there are other opportunities too. We saw this with, the Miami hockey program. Enrico Blasi, they had the booster club for Miami hockey had what was called, I think it was Rico's Bistro or Rico's Restaurant or something. And it's a situation where Miami coach Enrico Blasi and the team cooked the dinner and served the dinner to fans, and you paid some low amount of money. I can't remember. It was like maybe $5 for kids, $10 for adults. And it's a fundraiser for the team. But it's a great way for the coach and the players to get their face out there in the public eye.
I think for me, they're at the point where they've done so little to support the season ticket holders that they're going to need to go above and beyond. It's not going to just be another, we'll just toss a skate with the Mavs for kids out there again, and we'll call that good. Or, when the season's over, we'll do a, come to Baxter, stand in a line, and get a signed autograph poster, right?
Well, this year, let's this is honestly the funny thing. If you went and picked up your tickets this year, you got a clear plastic bag, like one clear plastic bag for what, like every 4 seats you had, you got a bag or whatever. And so, I mean, I guess that was a freebie, but it was a freebie for a policy that's been somewhat controversial and unpopular with people. So you've got to do things that have more of a positive vibe. And whether it's, giving an option to throw in a free t-shirt, or, giving season ticket holders bonus tickets that then they can give away to people that they know and have them come and try a game. I would prefer that to your, ultra discounted, $5 or $10 tickets during the season is, give those to season ticket holders and let them invite a fan to come to a game.
Yeah, you and I are both pretty, into marketing and stuff
Right.
on social media, and it's a common brand ambassador strategy.
Sure.
You get the people who are already committed to what you're doing to get others to commit to
Right.
what you're doing, and so, yeah, why not have like, why not send those tickets out and then get people to tweet using, this hashtag or something with them and their friends that they brought, and first time hashtag
Right.
first time Mav fan or something like
Sure,
that.
that's the type of thing that they could show on the Jumbotron. It
Yeah.
would be great.
Reshare on the pages, retweet, really
Yeah.
engage with the fans and say, look, here is our community of hockey fans growing.
Right.
And when people see growth, they want to be a part of it.
Yeah, people want to be part of things that are popular. The other thing that they haven't done, which kind of drives me nuts, is I think, for example, if you're a hockey season ticket holder, I would love it, for example, if you had an opportunity to buy season tickets to volleyball or basketball for a discounted rate. So you could get them all as a package deal for less money because you've already shown that you're interested in going to a UNO event in hockey.
Right.
So why not give people the opportunity to buy season tickets to the other events? And it could be a vice versa thing. It could be for the, the hockey people and other stuff, because you look, the people in the club seats, when they buy those club seats, they're buying tickets to all of the UNO sports and then first right of refusal on the concerts and other things like that. I don't understand why we haven't offered, people the opportunity to have package deals. Because as you know, Bridget and I, the first 2 years of Baxter Arena, we had season tickets for basketball, and then they closed off the upper deck. And the problem was, like, all of the good seats in the lower bowl were taken by that point, that were kind of at sort of center court. But it would be great if you could get people, because I guarantee you could get a certain segment of hockey season ticket holders to buy basketball and or volleyball.
Right.
And, even if you didn't have a lot of attendance, it'd be a great way to generate revenue on those sports that aren't revenue generators.
The other thing I think they should do is provide some sort of small but consistent perk.
Right.
I've been at a number of games where season ticket holders either had, I was at one where they had a special line
Sure.
for beer and concessions, and it was, if you
Yeah.
were a season ticket holder, this is your line, and if you were someone else, this is your line, and it was always a shorter line. It was just a nicer thing to get you through and
Yep.
get you. There's no difference. There's no cost at
and
that point in time.
It's honestly,
But
it's very easy. And
Right.
my apologies for interrupting you. It's very easy now that we've got those cards with
Oh, yeah.
the QR codes. You can just show your card.
Show your card. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very, very easy thing. And so I'm completely with you there.
Or there's a number of schools that do a discount. I've
Right.
known that, where they show their they get a special season ticket holder card or something like that.
And here's the thing, having that discount, even if it's, 5-10%, it just,
Right.
it makes you want to buy concessions more. And you have to do, because this is not, 2015 when we had just come off a Frozen 4 appearance and the arena was brand new. So you had some lapsed season ticket holders saying, ooh, maybe I need to get in on that. Since
because they're going
tickets
to
are
fill
going
up
to
and
be...
I'm not going to be able to find
Yeah,
tickets.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. That's where we've kind of gone beyond that. We've had some seasons that have just been so recently
Right.
in the eyes of a lot of people. And so, if we have down seasons, like some of the fans online have been talking about, that might be what happens the next couple of years, you've got to do some of these things. And I also think, having more face time with the coaches and players is important. I understand their time is valuable, but this is part of, what it means to, get a scholarship to come
Right.
play at the University of Nebraska Omaha. These are the kinds of things that other programs do for their fans, and I think it creates a greater connection and greater bond with the team.
It does kind of support Gabinet's philosophy, at least
Right.
as he's put out there, which is this is an occupation, this is a job. There's
Yeah,
a job to do, there's work to do.
right.
Some of it's hockey and some of it is some of this other stuff, but you
Right.
got to understand that there are things other than hockey that you're going to be responsible for doing. Classwork and some of this community involvement stuff.
Oh yeah, I think that's really, really important for them to get to know their fan base, because I don't necessarily think these players and even coaches get a chance to interact with a lot of the rank and file fans, and I think that that's kind of critical.
Right. So, with that in mind, shall we talk about Western Michigan coming to town?
Yes, talking about the next home series and the next chance for season ticket holders to get to watch the team. It's this weekend at Baxter Arena.
7:07, both February 1st and February 2nd.
Andy Murray bringing the Broncos in. Our
former NHL head coach.
Former NHL head coach. I like him. He's kind of an old school guy.
He's kind of an old school guy.
Yeah. Former Mav Rob Facca was on his staff a few years ago. Pretty good guy. And I'll tell you what, that was our lone road win, was out at Western back in November. So we were thinking a few weeks ago that, with Western at home this weekend and then Miami the following weekend, that might be an opportunity for us to pick up some wins, pick up some points in conference play. However, Western Michigan managed to dismantle Denver University in Kalamazoo last week.
The shocker out there.
Yeah. People have been talking. I believe Gabinet said at the beginning of the season that he thought that Western might be the best team in the NCHC this season. They've got a lot of good young players on that team.
They do.
Guys like Wade Allison.
I don't know. I was never one to be on that bandwagon. I didn't think that. I mean, I thought they'd be a top 4.
I didn't think they were either. Until I think they're a team that has. You look at them the last several years. They've been one of those teams that can be very competitive at times, but they've never been a team that has felt like a dominant team in the National Collegiate Hockey Conference. However, we have no idea what's going to happen here the next, month or two.
And UNO has played better at home. So hopefully that'll give us some boost maybe.
Yeah, we're a much different team at home than we're on the road. And I know that early series back in October against Notre Dame was a rough one, but by and large, we've played pretty solid at Baxter Arena, in particular the last, couple months.
And I think the other thing to point out is that Miami is going to St. Cloud. So when you look at the teams that have us, Miami and Cara College are the two that we're looking at going, okay, well, maybe we can put them in a rearview mirror a little bit. If you can shock Western Michigan this weekend and get some points out of it, you could conceivably put both of those teams behind you, heading into a weekend at Miami, Ohio.
Colorado College got a sweep out in Oxford this weekend. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to see. That's the crazy thing. We were talking about that again before the show. Miami hasn't won a game like in 12 tries, and yet they're still ahead of us in the NCHC. Right. I mean, that's what's crazy about how this season has gone for UNO. So, I don't know. What do you think about Western coming in?
Are we going to do our predictions? I'll do my prediction if you want me to go first.
I got to tell you, going back to. I mean, this Western team has won a lot of games the last couple months.
Yeah.
I mean, their only losses were at St. Cloud State, and that St. Cloud State is very, very good this season.
So are you saying you're predicting UNO does not get a win at Baxter?
I don't know. I've been so optimistic. I'm kind of afraid not to be optimistic because people are going to jump down my throat.
Because it doesn't give me anything to do.
I don't know. I you know what? Let me go different because I was thinking split, but let me go. I'm going to say Western Michigan comes in and sweeps.
So no points for UNO?
No. Is that yeah. You're looking at me like, wow, yeah.
I'm looking at you like, what am I supposed to do?
The guys are going to turn it around. We're going to sweep this weekend. This Western team, again, since November 16th, they've only lost 2 games, and those were at St. Cloud. Now, granted, they have not played a lot of games on the road in that time, so
they played Duluth tight, but that was at home.
Right.
So here's what I think. I think that they are a better home team than they are a road team.
I would concur with that.
and I think that their system is one that plays nicely into UNO's caliber, I guess, of play.
I think you're absolutely right. They're not. They do remind me of a kind of an old school CCHA team. So I think that much like North Dakota, I can see what you're saying. Much like North Dakota, I think we'll match up well with them.
So I expected Wade Allison to have a better season than he's having.
Right.
As long as he doesn't break out against UNO, I think we can get a split out of the weekend.
Okay.
I think I go back to what we said, happened in Duluth, and that there was just way too many shots on goal. I don't expect that Western Michigan's going to put up 55 shots. And so I think if we can hold them to sub 30 or something, Evan has been playing so well that we might be able to squeak out a 4-2 win or something. And then see what happens.
Yeah, you're right.
I think we'll split. That's my prognostication.
I think that's a pretty good bet. I'm going to say that we get swept, but you're right. They haven't put up like 50 shots like Duluth did on us. But of course,
and I don't see it.
Duluth hadn't put up 50 shots on anybody, so
right. But they've got talent that
they've got a lot of depth. Yeah,
and I don't see that. Wade Allison would have been the one that I would have guessed would. If he was having a better season, I would feel more comfortable about saying that they could put up something like that.
You've got some of these guys like Colt Conrad and Dawson DiPietro and guys, but I'm just not as familiar with them as some of the other NCHC teams.
Passalt's going to be the one,
right?
If we can keep him
right
tamed, which is, I think, easier to do because you kind of look at Western's roster and you say, okay, we need to focus on containing these guys. Whereas you look at Denver and St. Cloud and Duluth, and I'm not confident there's enough secondary scoring on those teams that you can say, okay, well, if we shut down the top line,
sure,
we'll be fine. I look at Western Michigan saying, we can shut down the top line, you should be okay. Denver failed to do that.
Well, and I think you also look at Western, the fact that we had success against them at a time when we weren't having a lot of success.
Right.
Says something. And so
and I would say that we're playing better hockey now than we were playing when we saw them.
I would definitely agree. I don't know, Western, that team, like I said earlier, they're just kind of an enigma as a team. I can't quite figure out, are they the real deal, or
are they just one of those upset teams that...
Are they just a paper tiger type of a team? You don't know. But I'm going to predict that they sweep.
Okay.
Just to be different.
We'll see how this goes.
I don't know. I feel like they have a lot more to play for at this point.
I would say they do. Well, I don't know. I mean, you could look at UNO saying, hey, if we can just not be the worst team in the conference, maybe that's something that we can step off of for next season.
It would be great. I'd much rather in the playoffs that if they do go on the road, which looks like it will happen, I'd rather they not have to go to St. Cloud or Duluth.
And if we can put Colorado College and Miami in our rearview mirror, at least from what I've seen statistically, we're most likely either go to Denver or to Western Michigan.
Right.
So,
and I would much rather. It's hard to say that with Denver, but I would much rather have that scenario than the two Minnesota schools, because we have not looked particularly good against them this season.
At either's barn. Whereas we played Denver better than we've played Denver in the past.
So we'll see what happens. Hopefully we've got a couple of lobby celebrations this weekend, and you and I are eating our words, and that would be spectacular. And then the fans can jump back on the bandwagon again until the next time we show.
Ride the ship on Twitter for a little bit.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in again and listening to us pontificate on all these wonderful hockey-related topics. If you would like to listen to back episodes of the Mavpuckcast, and I know some of you have mentioned that you've been getting caught up on the Mavpuckcast, so that's great. You can find links to all of those on Mavpuck.com. You can also find links to our social media channels. You can also sign up for an account on Mavpuck.com and sign up on our message board, which has some really good kind of, kind of, intelligent discussions going on right now. So if you're
Banter.
tired of all the drivel on Twitter and Facebook, come to where, it's kind of a highbrow environment for hockey fans.
And go Mavs.
Go Mavs.